I know that there's one question that everybody's asking, and that's whether or not the Glissen weapons are worth getting in the game. To be quite honest with you, they're really not. At plus 40, they have an attack value of 272, but the actual potential is unfortunately at a maximum of plus 14% potency, and the 14% is at level 4 potential. One of the big draws to this weapon is the fact that it'll attribute to elemental downs. The reason for this is by attacking an enemy with an element that it's weak against, you will then do elemental down damage. So these weapons are actually incredibly good for things like doing the urgent quest at this present moment in time. In addition, you will be able to deal more damage to an enemy that's weak against the element of the weapon. So for the sake of showing you guys examples, I currently have a side-by-side of a Glissen weapon and a Kaoiji weapon, both of which are unenhanced, and these weapons are fresh weapons straight out the box. I figured this is the easiest way to be able to show you guys just how much more damage the weapon will deal if you then have the elemental advantage type. So for example, the current enemy is weak against lightning. The Glissen weapon will then deal lightning damage even though it does not have its potential. In this comparison specifically, you can actually see that the Glissen weapon, even though these are both fresh weapons with neither one of them being upgraded, is in fact dealing way more damage than the unupgraded Kaoiji weapon. Now I did mention at the beginning of the video that these weapons would then be not worth it, and why is that? Although they are dealing more damage than 4-star weapons. There are two reasons for that. The biggest reason that I currently have that these weapons are currently not worth it is that they're only worth it in doing things like the urgent quests. So in most of the natural game state, unless the enemy is going to be weak to lightning, which most of them are currently not outside of the seasonal event that's currently ongoing, you might as well be running something like the Straga weapons or even one of the other weapons that you've already been upgrading. To add insult to injury, for the most part, these weapons are also not available in every single weapon type, which then brings me to my second reason of why these weapons currently aren't worth it. Hunter, when it comes to these weapons, are actually making out like bandits considering they have sword and wired lance. Fighters also have double sabers and knuckles. Hackers even make out like bandits too, having both wands and talus. Rangers kind of get shafted because they only have launcher. And then there is literally 0 point for you to be using the twin machine guns, even though they would be good if they didn't break chain trigger. And even though yes, force can use talus, it's still not rod. And even though rangers could use launcher, it's still not rifle. So you might wind up using these weapons for the urgent quest if you're a fan of any of the listed weapons. However, if you're anything like me and when you play hunter you prefer partisan even though you're naturally weaker than people who play sword, I think it would have been nice to at least have a partisan because, you know, they're kind of the weakest weapon out of the hunter tree. All right, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole spiel right now because honestly we're talking about whether or not these weapons are worth it. Going back into what I said about gunner, about them not being worth it for gunners, is they're actually not. So for those of you guys who are unaware, when you play gunner, chain trigger will randomly break in several different things. Whenever you get burned, whenever you're in laboratory ruins and you have a drone behind you, the list actually goes on to about 9 things now if you include the Glissen weapons. When you have the Glissen weapon potential, when the potential is able to be active and not on cooldown, it'll immediately proc your chain trigger. And I actually have a clip about that right here. As you can see, it is proccing my chain trigger and I love this so much. So in my opinion, you definitely shouldn't be picking up TMGs until they fix everything about chain trigger. Now you really don't have to worry about picking up the weapons from the actual shop because they do drop off of all of the other enemies. I have a video that I made recently about all of the information that you're going to need to know when it comes to making sure that you know the values of all the enemies and what they drop and how to more effectively farm pretty much everything in the event. And I'll be leaving that link down in the description below. But all in all, that's as far as we're going to go with the Glissen weapons. I personally don't think they're worth it in the long run. However, if you are going to be building them, then they are 100% absolutely worth it for things like the urgent quest and the current seasonal event. If for some reason you also don't get lucky enough, you can also buy them from the player shops, and when they do drop from enemies, they do have the chance of getting fixes on them as well. So in my eyes, I think I'm going to wind up farming this event so that way I can get a fixa version of these weapons, preferably one with fixa attack. So yeah, I think I'm going to end the video out here. Thank you guys again for watching. As always, stay awesome, stay beautiful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace. I'm out.